aboard USS Constellation and enjoy your visit to the historic site USS Constellation. There's a grand lady in Baltimore who has taken her rightful place as the Inner Harbor's crown jewel in the heart of the Chesapeake Bay.
Welcome everybody, I'm Jerry Getka, your host for the Top of the Morning Show.
And I'm Shaira Muwako,
our co-host. And we're here today on the U.S. Constellation in
down Baltimore Harbor.
Yes. Our guest today is Aisha Braveboy. And if your name sounds familiar, it's because she was recently a candidate for Maryland State's Attorney General. Stay tuned, lots of important information. We'll be right back.
It's just an honor to be here, so thank you so much for the invitation. I wanted to, and I'm so happy you asked the question, because the reality is, in the state of Maryland, I'm not going to talk about each HBCUs broadly. I'm going to talk about the ones here in our state, because those are the ones that we're responsible for. We have 4 HBCUs. They're all wonderful institutions that really can be a whole lot better if the state steps up and takes responsibility for equality and parity of funding for our institutions. Really the only real way to compete is to have competitive programs that students want to become a part of. If you look at housing is one of the greatest indicators of whether or not you're going to have a high graduation rate, like 5-year, I guess, as they measure it, 5-year graduation rate. At the HBCUs, most of the campuses are struggling with the issue of on-campus housing for their students. So there are a number of issues. I'm not making excuses, but there are a number of factors that the state has to take responsibility for because the state created these conditions at these state institutions. The reason why it's so critical for us now to invest financially and have a dedicated funding into our HBCUs is because the HBCUs outperform predominantly white institutions when it comes to producing African Americans in the STEM fields. Why is that important to Maryland? Well, Maryland wants to be a leader in cyber technology. Maryland wants to be a leader in biotechnology. Maryland wants to be a leader in healthcare and healthcare management. But there is a changing demographic in Maryland. Maryland is now close to 50%. At the last census in 2011, when the census numbers were reported, Maryland was 45% minority. 30% of the individuals living in the state are black. And so creating environments where minority students are excelling and achieving in critical fields of the future is very important to Maryland. Because if we're not building that workforce here, those companies are going to go somewhere else. So Maryland has to really take a look inward and say, you know what, where are we headed? Are we headed? Are we really serious about being this technology leader? If we are, we've got to invest, not in every institution, but specifically we need to make the investment that we didn't make years ago in our HBCUs, because they are producing engineers. I mean, Morgan produces more blacks overall in engineering than just about any other institution in the country. That's significant. That means we have a huge workforce that we can get right here in Maryland in critical fields. But if we don't recognize, if Maryland doesn't recognize by its pocketbook, not just by talking, Maryland doesn't recognize the importance of our HBCUs, how critical it is, not just to the future of the students who go there, but to Maryland's future, we're never going to get where we need to be. But I think but this year we have a bill to address that issue, and I'm hopeful that it'll spark more of these type of dialogues.
Welcome back everybody, I'm Jerry Getka, your host for Top of the Morning. I'm here today with our guest, Aisha Braveboy, and my co-host, Shaira. Now Aisha,
Yes.
You recently ran for state office.
I did. I ran for Attorney General.
Why would you want to do such a thing?
So I ran because I really understood the needs of the people of the state of Maryland, and I wanted to bring justice to a lot of people who have not been given a voice in our state. So I ran. I didn't make it this time, but I know that you haven't heard the last of me.
So you've gotten involved in the process. What's your background to get you involved in it?
Well, I'm a lawyer. I've been practicing for nearly 14 years. I'm also a state delegate. I've been a delegate representing the 25th District in Prince George's County for for 8 years. And so I have just a history of public service, and I will continue on as a citizen, as a private citizen for at least the next 4 years as a private citizen serving my community.
Are you locally grown? You're from the city?
Yes, I was actually born in Washington, D.C., so I am a native Washingtonian. The capital.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. You got to speak up, Aisha, please.
But I moved to Maryland when I was 5 years old. So most of my life I grew up in Maryland, and I went to University of Maryland at College Park. I went to Howard University for law school, but I lived in Maryland while I was attending Howard. And after I graduated, I worked for the Federal Communications Commission, then Prince George's County government. I worked in-house at the Anacostia Waterfront Corporation before going into private practice, which is where I am now in private practice. And I've been in private practice since I've been a delegate. So
How do you find politics in Maryland?
It is it's a small universe, small world, the political world that is. But so I find in many ways it's a closed world. And what I'd like to do is open it up a little bit more to the average citizen who really wants to be a part of that political process.
You mentioned closed. You are the second woman to run for state's attorney general, but the first.
Yes.
The first African American.
That's correct.
Woman to run for that office.
That's correct.
The population of Baltimore certainly is much larger. The population of the state equal to, or what is the percentage of ethnicities in the Baltimore area, Maryland area?
In Maryland. So according to the 2010 census, the population of Maryland is quite diverse. About 45% of the state is minority.
Includes me, I'm Polish American.
Yeah. 30%, or roughly 30% of the state is African American. Roughly about, I think 8% or so is Hispanic. And then
And a rising population.
A rising population, and then you have your Asian, Native American, and those who consider themselves to be multiracial. So the white population in the state is about 55%, and so we have an extremely diverse state, one in which people of different ethnicities and races can have a really good shot at running and winning, both locally and on the state level.
Did you have a feel for running into the old boy network?
Oh yes. Oh, very much so. Very much so. And I knew I was going to run up against that, not just merely because I'm an African American woman. It's more because I'm an independent person. I will buck the system. I will challenge the party. I will challenge some of the decisions made. Like I challenged the redistricting map. I voted against it. I thought it was a horrible map. I mean, we really gerrymandered most of our districts.
But that was the purpose of why they did it, was to gerrymander.
Well, yeah, and it was really unfortunate because what it did is it broke apart communities of interest. It also diluted the minority voting strength in our state, and so it was a real disservice to the people of our state, and I wasn't afraid to say it. So.
I think more people need to say that, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
Much more so. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
We fire the cannon, turn the capstan, and ring the bell daily. And we recommend the free self-guided audio tour, which comes in 2 flavors, one perfect for children, the other for adults. Plus, there's the ever-popular Powder Monkey Tour for kids and hands-on adult tours like A Ship as a Machine and Black Sailors in Navy Blue. Groups can also come aboard and sling their hammocks in our overnight program or host special events. Our crew knows the USS Constellation is an amazing experience.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry Gutke, your host for Top of the Morning. And our guest today, Aisha Braveboy. You also mentioned that you're in private practice.
Yes.
Tell us about some of the things you do there.
Well, I represent clients, mainly real estate clients and also corporate clients. I also
Your specialty is real estate?
My specialty is real estate, and in fact, I've done a lot of work.
I think it's a word for you.
Okay, sounds good. I also do a fair amount of work in historic preservation, and I used to represent the Historic Preservation Commission in Prince George's County, and I do work as a private practitioner in that area as well.
Have you worked on any unique cases? And I say that because I vaguely remember interviewing on another show a woman from Aberdeen.
Yes.
Who you were mentioning earlier, aren't you?
So Janice Grant, I believe that's the person who you interviewed. Janice is a wonderful woman whose family has a rich history here in the state of Maryland, in particular in Hartford County.
She's in her 80s?
She's in her 80s. I won't give out her age. I mean, I'll let you do that. She's a wonderful woman with a rich history here in the state. And her family actually has contributed a lot to our state and our culture here.
But she needed some help.
She needed some help. So in the city of Aberdeen had sent Ms. Grant a notice that they were going to demolish her property. And the demolition was going to occur on a Monday morning. I got a call on the Friday before that Monday when the demolition was supposed to take place. And I was asked if there was any way I could help. And so
I'm assuming she had herself chained and thrown in the building.
That's what my vision was.
I didn't know her personally. I spoke with some of her supporters, and I said I'll do all that I can because I understand the importance of preserving history, and I have a great love for that. And so, but this was Friday, and it was really after the courts were closed. So, I was really concerned about what I would be able to do in time. So I said the only way that I know that we can save this property is that I have to file an injunction, but I can't do that until Monday morning. And of course, that's the day the demolition is supposed to occur. So I said, look, I'll go to the courthouse. I'll do my part. But if the home is demolished before I can get this injunction, if I'm granted the injunction, then the issue is going to be moot. So the community stepped up. The community was there very early at her property, and they stood in front of the bulldozers, which arrived there early.
I picture that in lots of movies.
Yes, so this was high drama now. So there's the bulldozers arriving, the demolitions about to occur, and the community saying, no, you can't demolish this property. We're getting an injunction, and this is before the court open, so I'm still waiting to walk through the door and talk to the judge, and so I was able to get before Judge Carr at about 8 in the morning, which was wonderful because the courts don't usually open until about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and he heard my ex parte motion and granted the injunction, and we were so grateful because now, yes, I mean, well.
Did you get to ride up on a white horse waving the
I did not ride up on a white horse. I had to wait there.
Did you?
Well, what I really want to do is to make sure that we have this home preserved. I mean, getting the injunction is one thing. Working through the issues that led to the proposed demolition is another. And so we're working on those issues now. We think we'll be able to save the home. I mean, one of the issues was that the home did not yet have a historic designation, but it had all this history. And so that's one of the areas we're working on.
How did you get the community to get involved? Did you pass out flyers, have a announcement?
Believe it or not, I mean, Janice is just an amazing woman who everyone knows. And so when she actually put out the call, I mean, I got the call from one of her supporters. I mean, I didn't even know her before this. So I'm so happy I know her now.
Yeah.
But I didn't know her, and the reason why I even got involved is because someone reached out to me and told me about it, and I said, well, I'll do all that I can.
We actually have a clip that we're going to show the audience of the last time we interviewed them so that they have a feel for what we're talking about.
Okay.
Go ahead, roll clip.
One church in Philadelphia, Mississippi, where they had captured our friends and they killed them, the 3 civil rights workers, Mickey Schreiner, Andy Goodman, and James Chaney. Now, Mickey and I had been freedom riders together, so it was real close to me. And we were always supposed to report, call back to let people know where we were and that we were safe. And when they didn't call back, we knew something was wrong. Now, Andy had just gotten to Jackson that day, and he asked Mickey if he could go with him to investigate the church. So they did go. When we didn't hear from them, we knew something was wrong. The sheriff and 19 of his deputies, they let them out of jail after they had arrested them, followed them, captured them, burned the car, said they'd gone to Cuba. Some people may remember that. But
Well, that's a good point, because I understand what you're saying, because my generation, I lived through that as well. So I understand it, but for generations today who have no conception of what it was like at that time frame in the South, is there some movie or something that's even close to some of the experiences that you went
there
through?
was one
that people that our audience could look at to
called
get a feel?
Mississippi Burning.
Great.
And that's one I can't look at, when they capture the boys. Because what had happened, Jimmy Chaney was the African-American man of color, and they had chained him to a tree and beat him with chains. And of course, immediately Mickey was shot to death, because Mickey was the leader. And I have to say this, they said, oh yeah, you're the nigger lover. And then of course, Andy, we believe he was buried alive, even though he was shot, because the FBI paid a Klansman $25,000 to find out where they were. And one morning we were getting ready to go to school, and Ma Chank had the TV on, and we heard that they had found the boys. They were buried in a dam, and we saw the foot of one of them, a shoe, and a pant leg. I couldn't look at it anymore. But Andy had dirt clenched in his hand. They thought he was trying to dig his way out.
That gives everyone a small taste of the person that Janice actually is. That means a good resolution, for a good outcome for Janice.
A good outcome for Janice, and really when you preserve history, that's
another
what I
piece of
said.
history.
Another piece of it's really for the community, and that's what's so absolutely wonderful about this.
Now, you must have come a long way to go from Puget County to Aberdeen.
Well, we
Oh,
say
that
Prince
was-
George's, we don't,
Oh, I'm sorry, Prince George's.
that's right, that's right.
Anyway, it's a fair piece.
Yeah, but, you know, the truth is, as a lawyer, you're often called upon to travel far and wide to seek justice for people, and, you know, that's what I'm called to do. All right, now, I'm not sure about the superhero part, but, you
I
know,
know your cape is hanging.
Well, my cape,
Oh.
but we're often called upon to travel in order to deliver justice for people. And that's, I mean, to me, I haven't graduated from Howard University School of Law, the greatest civil rights institution in our country. I mean, this is the least I could do to give back to the state. So, yeah.
So you'll be running in the next election?
I will most likely, you'll see me again in the next election, I'm sure. Absolutely.
And on that note, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
You know, if you have the option of going to a university that has new facilities, that have full-time professors, that have upgraded technology, versus a campus that has facilities that are not modern, that don't have the sort of the capacity to facilitate some of the upgrades in technology that we all know is extremely important to prepare our young people to work in the jobs of the future, in those STEM fields, then a competitive student, a student who has done well, who tested well, who's done well in school, they're most likely going to opt to go to the campus that's going to provide them with more resources. It is what it is. So if you're in demand, so if you're an African American student who's in demand, meaning you've done well in school, you've got good grades, you've done well on your SATs and other standardized tests, schools are going to flock to you, and you're going to have your choice of institutions. And the question is, what is going to be important to you? And certainly, I think being in an environment that will foster, a highly competitive environment is where you're going to opt to go to.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry Gutke, your host, here with our guest, Aisha Braveboy. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm trying to give you a promotion.
I know.
help you get into that old boys network.
Oh, I see.
And my co-host, Shira. Shira, you were talking during the break. You had a question.
Yes, I do. So there's a lot of colleges around in Maryland. So I was wondering, what do you think young people here today can do for their community?
Well, they really need to get involved in their communities. I mean, everything from...
In a good way.
In a good way. Oh, yes, in a great way. Everything from, like participating in their, community associations. A lot of times young people don't go to, even in their 20s and even many times in their 30s, they're not attending their community association meetings. They're not involved in the running of their own communities. And the reality is those community associations that you live in, they are probably the most direct form of democracy that you'll really see and experience as citizens. And so you have a good opportunity to get involved, to help to direct the outcomes of what happens in your community, your own community. Whether or not your streets are safe. Whether or not you have amenities that the young people will want. To participate in, like sporting activities or any type of recreational activities. I mean, if you're able to really get involved at the association level, you can really impact that, and I think a lot of young people don't know that. So that's number one. They absolutely have to do.
Different programs, do you think? Like, are there different programs out there that young people can get involved with, or do they have to go right to the source?
Well, they can get involved. I think the NAACP has a youth component, so there are clubs like that. The National Urban League also has a youth component there that young people can get involved in. They can get involved, obviously, in their local church activities, and most of the firefighters, police, and they have groups that target young people if they want to come in and explore programs that young people can get involved in and learn a little bit about public safety. So there's a lot of opportunities for young people to get involved, and I suggest that they do. but also they can get involved right in their own school. They can run for office in student government or participate in some type of community service project with their peers.
How often, you mentioned getting involved with your community associations and community organizations and that sort of thing. In your experience, how often have those types of organizations become bullies, which does happen?
It happens. Okay, so in my practice, I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to community associations. And that's actually really the reason why I ran for office, is my work with associations, advising them, and a lot of the leaders said, hey, we want you to represent us, you should run for office. So associations can be really, they are really powerful entities, and they can either improve your quality of life or they can take away from it. And so every year I host a community association conference because of that, to empower the boards of directors, give them information, give them training, connect them with both industry resources and government resources to help them run their communities effectively.
We've talked about a lot of things.
Yes.
We've talked about the politics, we've talked about the work you've done with the historic preservations. Now we've talked about the community associations. What else would you like to tell us?
Well, last week, or actually about 2 weeks ago now, I was asked to speak at the National Press Club on a very important issue, and that's human trafficking. This issue has been brought to light, obviously, by the unfortunate incident in Nigeria where 276 girls were stolen. This is an international outrage. But what we know is that there are young men and women who are involved in human trafficking, unfortunately, not just here in the country, but here in the state of Maryland. And we have one of the largest incidents in the state of Maryland of human trafficking, and that's something that we must get our arms around.
Well, why are we, is it because of our geographical location?
It's absolutely because of our geographical location, because of, our waterways and everything else. I mean, we are
Midway up and down 95.
And it is, and a lot of people are not aware of it, and that's part of the problem. And it doesn't just affect those in low-income neighborhoods, it affects everyone It crosses sort of the socioeconomic boundaries that we think about. And a lot of times these, those who are,
As well as
looking and
ethnicity
praying,
and race.
ethnicity, race, they're
Crosses all those borders.
preying upon young women who they believe are vulnerable for one reason or another. And it's not just because of economics. I mean, that does play a part. But a lot of our young women, in particular and men, have very low self-esteem. And those who are, who are preying on these young people, they see it, they sense it, they become their friends. They make them feel good initially, and so they're excited. They want to feel like they belong somewhere. They want to feel loved and appreciated. And that's how they reel them in. And then after that, they just have their way with them. And it's really unfortunate. We have to focus on this. It's going to become more, I think, of an issue as we get these new casinos up, in Baltimore City and Prince George's County. That type of activity follows certain types of facilities, including casinos. So we have to put more boots on the ground. We have to do a lot more public awareness about the issue of human trafficking.
So what is your involvement in this going to be?
Well, now that I'm out of office, I think I can, well, the good thing is
For a while.
For a while. I have a lot of time, and I will do a lot of public awareness campaigns around this issue, and certainly work with our local state's attorneys to come up with ways to combat this. But it is absolutely going to be an issue.
Do you think the laws as they currently are in place are adequate to deal with this issue?
Yeah, I think that we have done a good job in the General Assembly of creating, a legal framework to deal with individuals involved in human trafficking. But the problem is the resources on the ground, the police resources, the prosecutors that need to be involved. We have to create a better framework for us to go after these.
I'm thinking to myself, we've done a huge effort in terms of drug trafficking.
Yes.
And we have dogs that can sniff the cars to make sure that, but we don't have any dogs or anything to sniff human trafficking.
Yeah, it's a little bit more subtle and it's a little bit more difficult to infiltrate, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible. And but we just have to focus more of our resources on it. And when we see these Craigslist ads for, because people are advertising on the internet, many of those young women you'll think that they're young women advertising, but it's really their pimp who's advertising on their behalf.
And for all those people out there who would like your help in helping with some of their issues, how do they reach you?
They can reach me at contact, that's CONTACT, at AishaBraveboy.com. My name is AISHA BRA, V as in victory, EBOY. That's contact at AishaBraveboy.com.
Brave boy. Now, if you hear that strange noise in the background, it almost sounds like they're pulling up the anchor or something on the ship. But again, there are all sorts of noises in the background in terms of the tours going through, the bells and whistles going off, the horns going off. But that's what it's like in downtown Baltimore on the U.S. Constellation and the captain's quarters. I want to thank you for being our guest today.
Wonderful.
Great segment.
Thank you very much.
We learned a lot. And
So come aboard USS Constellation. And while you're here in Baltimore, be sure to visit these other attractions of the Chesapeake Bay Gateways Network. The Lightship Chesapeake and 7-Foot Knoll Lighthouse, both part of the Baltimore Maritime Museum. So welcome aboard USS Constellation and enjoy your visit to the historic sites of the Chesapeake Bay Gateways Network.